Hey, welcome back. It's always great to welcome in our next guest, Phillip Stutts. We've had so many conversations with Phillip about the NIL. Maybe the first conversation we ever had was with him. And we will talk about that in a minute because there is a lot going on there. But first, I want to congratulate Phillip on yet another book. He's had a number of bestsellers, and his latest is out today, The Undefeated Marketing System. This how to grow your business and build your audience using the secret formula that elects presidents. A lot of people, I can think of one or two people that may be watching trying to get some tips. Phillip, great to have you on, and congratulations, and tell us about putting this book together.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. And, I was been working in sort of the business background in politics for 25 years, as you know. And ultimately, I discovered a systematic approach to winning political campaigns. And so I really wrote a book. It's kind of a modern day historical look at how political campaigns are run. So if you like to know how inside baseball political campaigns are run, this book is definitely for you. And then I said, man, I wonder if we could utilize these same strategies to help build businesses. And when I started putting this formula together over the last few years and working with clients, I realized this formula it works ubiquitously in a lot of different industries, including the sports industry. And so this 5-step, what I call the undefeated marketing system, is literally how sports teams win championships. It's how political campaigns win those races, including presidential races. And now we are introducing this systematic approach to businesses.
Well, the two are intertwined, and you and I have come together really, in the spirit of both politics and sports. And I will be speaking at a school here if you don't mind. But a couple of years ago, Phillip and another friend invited me to come to Washington to speak to a group of, I don't even know how to describe this
SEC
group.
fans.
Phillip, how would you describe it?
Rabid SEC fans that live in Washington, D.C.
And I mean, it wasn't just like, your garden variety. I mean, former governors, senators. I mean, it was a pretty well-heeled group. But that was not the purpose of my story, though. I flew in, and the first stop was the White House on a Sunday afternoon, and we were walking through the West Wing, and there was nobody there. The president was out playing golf. So, we were just having fun because a mutual friend of, I think it was an Alabama guy, wasn't he, Phillip? He was giving us the tour. And
that's right.
We were probably talking too much out of school to be literally right outside the Oval Office, considering the times. And all of a sudden, the Secret Service man jumped in front of us. I think he was at the Oval Office, Phillip, correct? And he looked at me and he said, "Hotty toddy," and we just cracked up because we knew we had been busted at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, 1 foot in the Oval Office, and the man guarding one of the most sacred rooms in the world was an Ole Miss man.
We were right outside the West Wing, and you whispered in my ear, "Do you think we're going to get kicked out?" And I said, "I think there's a 50-50 chance."
We went places we should have never gone, and we'll never go again after telling that story. Well, back to the book. I didn't mean to interrupt it for a
No,
backstage at the West Wing. But it is, so without divulging secrets of the book, give us a clue on how this works.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'm happy to tell you what it is, and I'll make it quick, but I'll show you how it works in politics, then I'm going to translate it over into sports, because I think your listeners, I'm going to have a sports intent on this show, and I think your listeners would find it super interesting, especially if they're business owners. And by the way, for anybody listening right now, just because you're a friend of Paul's, we've reduced the price of the book to 99 cents for the next 24 hours, so it is available on Amazon for 99 cents for anybody listening right now. But here's what we do. In politics, the first step of this particular system is we got to figure out what the voters think, and we want to make sure that we find out the issues that they care about to such a big extent that they're going to, they want to vote for that particular candidate. The candidate can't be out there advocating positions that the voters don't care about. And so we have to find an alignment, sort of where the voters and the politician come together. And in sports, I always say the week after the game, if Alabama is going to play like Tennessee the next week, and they just played Georgia, the first thing they're going to do is look at game tape. They're going to figure out their tendencies. They're going to figure out what they need to do. They're going to look at the data. Just like in politics, we look at voter data to understand how to communicate better to voters. And then the second step for us in politics is we build a game plan. And in sports, it's the same thing. After the game is over from the previous week, you put together a game plan for the next week's game, right? And so the third step for us in politics is now that you know what the voters think, now that you have a game plan, you start building the brand. And the brand is your website or the videos you put up. And in sports, it would look like this. The owners of the stadium or the university of the stadium cleans up the stadium. They get the concessions ready for the next game. They wash the jerseys. They get the brand right, right? And then the fourth step in politics is now we're going to go test all the messages we found that the voters care about. And we're going to try to figure out which ones resonate to such an extent that it'll elect that politician. And in sports, the fourth step is it's the testing phase. But in sports, it's you practice all week long. You practice the game plan, you practice the plays, and you figure out what's going to work and what doesn't. And the last step is now that you know what's going to work in the political sphere, you go out and you launch the fifth step, you launch your political marketing campaign that wins every single time for every single political race. The only problem is our competitors are using the exact same formula. And in sports, it's the same thing. After you practice all week, you launch, you play the game. And all the reason that sports and politics are some of the most innovative marketplaces in the world is because they're utilizing this five-step system. And what I decided to do is I'm going to introduce this to the business world. And so in this book, this is not a textbook. This is a book that is filled with a ton of inside political stories, corporate marketing stories. If you want to know how the corporate marketing world is changing rapidly, this is a very interesting book where I lay out just a ton of stories and teach the lessons through stories.
Phillip Stutts, the Undefeated Marketing System, I know a lot of our viewers and listeners are going to grab that 99. I mean, Phillip, where do you get a book for 99 cents?
And it's 25 years of my work and 3 years of me writing the book. So just for the next 24 hours, and then we're cutting it off, and it goes to full price after that.
I wish I had thought of that when I had a book tour years ago. I might have actually been successful.
I think you made the New York Times bestseller list.
Okay. And it's my claim to fame in the world of literary snobs. So Phillip, let me ask you this: NIL is really coming into focus. I read something that Alabama is doing something on it today. Everyone seems to be finally coming together, like you predicted. I'll never forget. We did a show, I think, in February of 20, before the pandemic erupted in New York. It was the last time I saw you, maybe the last time I saw anyone, and and here we are. This is the summer you've been talking about.
Well, everything comes down to July 1, 2021, and right now you have every state that is trying to implement their own bills. Alabama is passing a bill right now. I think it's on the governor's desk. Mississippi passed the bill. All these have this July 1 deadline. The federal government has 2 bills in place, and then Congressman, one of the leaders in the NIL in Congress, Anthony Gonzalez, is about to introduce another bill, a bipartisan bill, and the NCAA has punted and punted and punted, and now they're waiting on the Supreme Court to make this is the NCAA versus Alston case, and so they're all waiting, and so you have this titanic. Or this tectonic shift, this earthquake that is all coming into focus. And what's crazy is if the federal government doesn't pass a bill very quickly, which I thought for sure when we last thought that this would happen quickly, it hasn't. That means every state's going to have a different way of looking at the NIL, and some states are going to have advantages over other states, and that's going to be a recruiting advantage. And we already saw Florida State came out a couple weeks ago, maybe last week, and announced some kind of Apex program where they were going to put NIL and use it to recruit athletes. I'm sure Alabama is going to do this as they're on the forefront of all of this, but it is about to be the wild, wild west. There is about to be money everywhere for these students, and not just men's basketball and men's football. It's going to deeply impact in a positive way women's college basketball and women college athletes. And so across the board, athletes are finally going to be paid for their name, image, and likeness. How it shakes out over the next 2 years is anybody's guess at this point, because the Supreme Court has to decide, the NCAA has to figure something out, all these different states have different bills, and it's a total mess right now.
Phillip, what's going to happen, though, on July 1st? I mean, will it be different everywhere, or will Congress make it universal, or will there be legal action? I mean, I realize you don't know, but what's your best guess?
I think absolutely. I think everybody, I think Congress and the NCAA are waiting on this NCAA case to come down from the Supreme Court, which would be in a couple of weeks. But as you know, Congress has never passed a bill quickly unless we're in wartime. And so I simply don't see how a bill gets passed in the next 8, 9, 10 weeks. It just has never happened on just a random legislative issue. And so if that is the case, then each state is going to have their own set of rules. And now the NCAA could file a lawsuit in each of these states and try to block them from implementing it. So the state of Alabama could have an NIL bill that affects Auburn and Alabama, but Florida has a different NIL bill that affects University of Florida, Florida State, Miami, and all the other universities. And when I say that is that athletes could make more money in one state than they could in another. And so you could see this playing out until the fall, until the feds get involved and they put in one standard, the NCAA agrees to it, and then we have one rule that affects all of college football. But I don't know how that happens in the next 10 weeks unless something miraculous happens.
Yeah, and on the Supreme Court, I mean, usually, it won't go any later than the final week of June, which doesn't help anyone. You can't. Congress is not going to. I mean, there's. Right.
Yeah, and the NCAA has literally punted. Every time they've been given a chance to figure this thing out, they've punted it. And I mean, I read some of the transcripts from their case in front of the Supreme Court, and you'd be shocked by how much the Supreme Court went after the NCAA. Now, you can take that one way or you can take it the other. Maybe they're playing devil's advocate, or maybe they're advocating a position. But either way, it was a very embarrassing day in front of the Supreme Court for the NCAA.
Just another day that ends in Y for the NCAA. Phillip, great to have you here. Congratulations on the book. And we will continue this conversation throughout the spring and summer. Be well.
Thank you.
You got it. Phillip Stutts joining us on his new book. We will take a break. A lot to do the rest of the way, and we are coming back with much, much more.